Sammy here. Welcome back to the channel, and I'm just gonna do finish my Dragonfly review since I gave like a review on them back in like December, like only wearing them like one time. Now I've wore these for my full track season, which was only like 5 or 6 races. But now I just thought I'd talk about them after the season a little bit. So really like these shoes whenever I was racing. I mean, I've worn them probably like 6 times. I've worn them for a 1500, for a Steeple, for a 10K, then for a 5K, and for another Steeple. So I wore them 5 times in total, and they don't really like look like they're like too worn. Like, they still look like they're in decent shape after racing 5 races in them. So I think that's a good sign. I'll probably race with them again next season because they're not too worn out. But overall, I really like these shoes. I chose these over Vaporflies in like almost all my races besides one. And there was one race I wore Vaporflies just because the track was like so hard that I didn't feel like wearing spikes. And I wanted to save my legs for the Steeple the next day at conference. So conference 10K, I opted for Vaporflies over the Dragonflies. But so continuing on, I feel like these definitely are like, they're like almost like mini version of Vaporflies, but they have spikes in them, which helps out like a lot because the spikes help you dig in a little more. I said in like my earlier video I didn't necessarily like the plastic on the bottom, but I mean, I didn't really notice that in races unless you're racing on like something really hard. You're probably not going to notice the plastic too much. So I didn't really notice that, even though like I said before I thought it was kind of weird, but I got used to it, didn't really notice it. And so like these shoes were advertised, I think they're advertised for like more 5K, 10K, but a lot of 1500 people actually ran in them. I think they're definitely good for 15 up to 10K. I don't know how I mean, there's not really any track races longer than 10K, so I don't really know how they'd fare in any further distance than that. But for the 1500 and through the 10K, all my events, they really felt good to me. So, you know, I'm sure Nike will have another one out by next track season, like the 2s or some other shoe. But if you're looking for a track spike, I would say to get this one. It's probably the best on the market right now. So now I'm just going to talk about some of the races that I wore them in. So enjoy that. So the first race I wore these in was the 1500 at Lynchburg. And this was my PR in the 1500. I ran a 4:09. I have another video on this, so if you haven't watched that one, go watch it. It's like titled 1500 at Lynchburg, first race in the Vaporflies. But ran a PR by like 9 seconds, which I basically ran what I thought I could run like since like my freshman year, but I just finally had a good 1500. So I went 4:09, and I started out really slow, started out in the back of the pack if you watch the video. And then after the first 400, I just took the lead, led the whole time, just pushed the pace, and then one of my teammates outkicked me in the last 400, or well, in the last like straightaway. But overall, that was a fun race, and that was my first race in them, and they gave me a lot of confidence in the shoes. Next race I did in them was the 10K at High Point, and I was debating on whether to go Vaporflies in this race or the Dragonflies, but ultimately I just opted with the Dragonflies because they were a little more aggressive. And this race was really windy, like 10-15 mile an hour winds the whole time. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to like hit my goal, but it's probably one of my favorite races because I had my teammate Isaac and Jason. Isaac paced us for 5K and Jason stayed until 4 miles. And then me and my teammate Nate alternated laps after that till the end. So it's just one of my favorite races. It's like races where it's just like the saying teamwork makes the dream work. Like that race basically is the embodiment of that phrase, in my opinion, because I just worked together with my team the whole time and ran technically like a 2-minute PR, but like a minute PR. But I ran a 31:46, finally broke 32, which has been my goal for forever, so probably one of my all-time favorite races. Next race I wore them in was the Steeple at Wesleyan's, my first Steeple of the year, and I did this the week after the 10K. I had like a 6-second PR. I was in the lead the whole time. I won by like 40 seconds, so I wasn't really pushed too much. So The fact that I PR'd in this is still like pretty good. But this race wasn't necessarily anything spectacular for me. It's just felt like an average race going out there and just trying to get a time to get in the conference, which I did. So it was still a good race overall for me, and the shoes felt really good in this race too. This next one was the 5K at Charleston. This is a race. This is my worst race of the year. I'd ran the 10K, then the Steeple, and then the next week ran this. So it was like a 3-week period in a row of racing and racing all my main events. So this was really tough. It was my worst race of the year. I didn't even run faster than my second 5K and my 10K that I'd ran like 2 weeks before that. So wasn't really happy with that race. But I don't think that was the shoes' fault. That was obviously just fatigue setting in. But yeah, the shoes still felt good running in them for the mile that I actually ran good. But overall, that race, let's not talk about it. The final race I wore the Dragonflies in this year was the Steeple at Conference, which this was the day after the 10K. So I was already really fatigued. The 10K didn't necessarily go the way I wanted. I wound up going 9:53, I think. So it's like a 6-second PR, but I still feel like I should be able to run the Steeple faster than that. I feel like I should run in like the 9:30s for the Steeple. I just haven't really had a good race in it yet. But coming off the 10K, I still thought that was pretty solid with the 6-second PR, being that fatigued and my legs being destroyed. But the shoes also felt really good in this race, even though the track was kind of hard. But overall, like I was saying before, really like these shoes, and I would tell basically anyone they should get them. So